Welcome everybody to the general Microsoft 365 development special interest group. We probably actually, by the way, just a side note, we'll drop the SIG term and all of that from these calls because it doesn't make any sense for a lot of people, but SIG means special interest group. Due to historical reasons, we started doing bi-weekly calls at some point, and then we had the monthly calls, and then we named the bi-weekly calls a special interest group, and that's why that came to be at some point. But we're heading to this weekly mode with the community, open source and community videos and community calls, and most likely we'll do some adjustments on the monthly ones as well. More on that slightly later when we get a few surveys out and get your input on that. But today is April 1st. As I am a Microsoft employee, we do actually have an official policy in Microsoft that we are not allowed to do April Fool's jokes. So that means that there's no jokes on this presentation, so I do apologize on that. And during the demos, we might have some jokes related on that, but it's just for the sake that some people might get confused what is a joke and what is not a joke. So Microsoft, we're trying to be friendly from that perspective. Now, today we'll have a lot of material to go through. Once again, we'll try to do the intros and everything else in 15 minutes, and then we go to the demos. So Microsoft is going to do a list group header formatting options demo first, and then we move into the Bert Janssen, who's going to do introduction to Bmp Core SDK. So getting started with that one. Why does it exist? What does it actually do? Why would you be interested in using that, and then how to get started on that? So it is a really cool SDK, community-driven open source SDK as well. And then as a last piece, and certainly not the least thing, we have a Kathy Xu from Pfizer and Paolo Bialorsi doing a great demo on a customer case on building Microsoft Teams integration to external systems. And really cool story how they in Pfizer and they implemented this Microsoft Teams integration and customer solution over there. So really cool stuff. Now, before we go to the actual demos and all of that and the material, just a quick recap again, there are opportunities to participate in this community, so feel free to reach out to any of the PnP community leads if you're looking into doing a community demo. We would love you to have an opportunity to join and do a live demo in this course, which is, by the way, a good opportunity if you're looking into getting an MVP status at some point, or if you're an MVP and you need to get some points to your renewal. These are great opportunities of getting those. And you can absolutely contribute also on GitHub, and the most important piece is always to provide feedback. So we know in Microsoft how to address things, and also in open source projects, we know what works and what doesn't work on that. Please remember that positive feedback is also welcome, and for a lot of the open source projects are being executed during the own time of these people. So be polite and be understandable if there's some bugs or issues, especially in open source side, and don't attack the people because that's not beneficial for anybody. Now, quick recap on the URLs. I'm not going to go all of them through. We have 2 different YouTube channels. We have a lot of open source stuff. We have sample galleries, really cool samples available, like 500 or more samples available in GitHub for you to take advantage. And then there's a lot of URLs available. Only one URL to remember, which is the last one in the slide, which is AKMS M365 PnP. From there, you can download the community call details, get to all of the SDKs, the official ones, the open source ones, community-driven ones, the samples, all of that stuff from one simple location, AKMS M365 PnP. Now, a few news and a few kind of classical updates for Microsoft Teams sample gallery. There's already hundreds. There's a lot of samples available already. So go to the AKMS Teams samples, and this is a great location to actually see all of the samples what Microsoft has created and what community has created. And you can actually even filter down on the fact that is the sample coming from Microsoft or is it coming from community if you're looking explicitly at differentiator on that. From Microsoft perspective and our perspective, we are part of the same community. We are the community together with you. So Microsoft is just one person and one company contributing on the community and open source assets in the same way as you are, which from my perspective is the healthiest way of thinking the relationship between Microsoft and communities in these areas. Now, for the getting started on community, I will actually throw the ball on David Warner, who should be on the call.
Yep, thanks, Vesa. Well, friends, as you may or may not know, we are an open source and inclusive community with lots of tools and resources and opportunities to contribute back. But we, of course, understand that that can come with some hurdles, such as how to get started with GitHub, how to maneuver using SPFx and Node and NVM and all of these tools. Well, Sharing is Caring is an initiative here to provide you hands-on, inclusive, safe space guidance on how you can get more involved. And we have got a variety of session topics now, too many to cover on this short little segment, but you can see them listed there. They're all free, they're all live, and none of them are recorded, so they're completely safe space opportunities to ask all kinds of questions and get more involved. We invite you to join any one of them. We have a few exciting ones coming up next month for the Ask Me Anything, covering the CLI for Microsoft 365. And of course, our team is consistently growing, so we are welcoming Louisa Fries to the team. Exciting opportunities that are coming soon, and more session topics such as Power Platform, contributing back to the SPFx samples, and so much more. Also, if you would like to get more involved in terms of demoing on some of these calls, we have the buddy system, and you saw that a couple weeks ago. So please take advantage of all these tools and resources. We love to collaborate and want to see everybody get more involved in the community. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you. This is really great initiative, which is getting a lot of attention also internally in Microsoft. So because one of the challenges which we always have is that there's much more people who are interested in getting involved, but they don't quite know how. And that's why we have aka KKMS Sharing is Caring initiative. So thank you, David, Hugo, April, Luis, and Emily for running the show in this side. So thank you for that one. Now, a few news and updates on other areas before we go to the open source project updates. We will have a really cool 2-hour live stream coming up, which focuses on built apps with Microsoft Graph. This is happening on April 14th. There is actually 2 times time deliveries of this session. So one time for the APAC targeted time zones, and then one time for the Redmond or Pacific time zone. And this is a similar kind of thing what happened in the mid-December. So there will be a separate PnP watch party. So if you're interested in watching this live stream together with other people in the community, you can actually go to the AKMS PnP watch party and register, and you will get an invite then to that watch party. Cool way of actually having a live discussion related on what is being demoed and then hanging together with friends. That's what that is all about. Really cool stuff coming on April 14th. Now, one thing what I also wanted to update is the update related on SharePoint Framework 1.12.1, even though this is not the SharePoint call, but we want to make sure that you are up to date from a community side on what is the plan, what's actually going to happen. So we had a pretty unexpected and unfortunate regressions in the SharePoint Framework 1.12 version, and we actually removed that not to be the default version anymore. So right now, if you install SharePoint Framework, you'll get 1.11. 1.12.1 is intended to go live within a few weeks, but to avoid these kind of regressions in the future, we're moving to this new mode where we're going to release a public beta. And this is going to then help all of our partners and ISVs and customers to double check what's coming and out. Are they being impacted on things? And of course, we'll do a significant amount of additional testing in Microsoft before the public beta is started. Right now, our plan for 1.12.1 is that we will release a public beta next week. It's going to happen on the next week between Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We never ship on Friday. There's a rule for that internally in Microsoft. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, next week, we're going to release the public beta. And then 2 weeks from that moment forward, we'll release the GA version of 1.12.1. And that's going to also have a Note 14 support and fixes of any of the known issues which are available. So just making sure that everybody is up to date on here. There's a significant additional focus on the quality and making sure that future releases on SharePoint Framework will be much more solid and you can trust on what's coming out from Microsoft. And we do apologize on the inconvenience caused by the 1.12 issues around that. Now let's jump then to the Pnp Dotnet Liferay. So Bert, you're on the call for this.
Yes, thank you, Vesa. It's April 1st, but we really shipped releases today. So version 1.1.0 from Pnp Core SDK. Key new things are SharePoint syntax support and taxonomy support and upside. So pretty massive release again. And I'll talk a bit more about what it is in the other slides coming up. Combined with the Pnp Core SDK release, we also released PnP Framework because PnP Framework uses Pnp Core SDK is under the covers. 1.4. This one is mainly a bug fix release with incremental small improvements. Okay, what did we do? PnP Framework, as mentioned, 1.4 is out. Several fixes and improvements by a ton of people. I'm not going to spell them out all. They're listed on the slide. And our focus for PnP Framework just stays maintenance, fixing things, improving the quality. The actual main work is done on PnP Core SDK, which is the new .NET library. 1.1 got out with SharePoint syntax support. Syntax actually enables you to work with content understanding models. So you can take a model from a content center and push it towards your organization, kind of applying it to the libraries in your site, running the content in the libraries via the model and so on. So those things are supported now. We have hub site support, so you can join hub site, move away from hub site, define your site as hub site and so on. Improve batching and several other fixes. So pretty decent work that was done, which justified the 1.1 release. And usage-wise, we keep on growing. This is not official figures for March, but March will cross, I think, about 92,000, 93,000 tenants, roughly. So keeps on growing. Good news.
Cool. Thank you, Bert, for that one. And then let's jump then to the Bmp Powershell updates, and that's going to be done by Erwin.
Yep. So just as Core and Framework have a new release, Bmp PowerShell 2, because yeah, we make use of the same libraries. So we released 1.5. We're actually ahead in versioning. We're leading there.
I think I have to say
I could change that.
Awesome comment from Victor related on version 1.4 is a really great version for April 1st. So
anyway. It is. Yeah.
So you're already in May, kind of.
We are, yeah, we're actually a month ahead. Yeah. So what's in 1.5? We have a brand new commandlet called Publish PnP Company app. If you want to use Microsoft Viva Connections, we have an commandlet for that does basically all the work. If you look into Viva Connections, you can download this PowerShell script from Microsoft to set up your site in Teams. Our commandlet does the same thing with one difference. We also upload it to your Teams app catalog. And we have some commandlets now for syntax. Bert can maybe add a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a bit aligned with the syntax support in the Core SDK. So you can get the models in the content center and then deploy those models inside the organization to your libraries and go to the library and say, like, all these documents in this library, run them through the models that I just applied, and then you see the metadata columns being populated because the AI and syntax will detect the metadata from your unstructured content and do all that kind of things work. So yeah. So it's about 5 commandlets.
Cool. And then we have some small bug fixes. And with the numbers, yeah, 24,000 tenants, tiny bit more already. That number is increasing every day, and we're over 170,000 downloads. So people are really catching up with the new PowerShell, which is really good.
Cool. Thank you, Erwin, on that. Victor, your teams.
Yes, so we haven't had too much of an updates over the last few weeks. There are a couple of pull requests specifically from Paolo. We had one from Paul as well that we merged already. So some discussions going on merging these new PRs. I've been very busy the last few weeks, so haven't had time to dig too deep into that. There's been some minor fixes in the different libraries. One thing started elaborating on yesterday is if we should add a Viva Connections option to this one as well, in those cases where you want to combine a Viva Connections app together with your other extensibility in Microsoft Teams as well. Sort of, for instance, combine Viva Connections with your corporate bot or those kind of things. So that's one of the options I'm exploring right now. Apart from that, it's been the best month so far when it comes to the number of apps generated. So that's really good to see. It's a lot of folks from all across the globe that really creates new apps and all kind of different apps, everything from bots to tabs. So really good to see. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Victor, for that one. And then let's jump on the Microsoft Graph Toolkit updates from Beth.
Great, thank you. So for the latest update, we've fixed a whole bunch of bugs for different components and then added some features to them as well. So try them out. For those of you who doesn't know what Microsoft Graph Toolkit is, it's a reusable web component library plus authentication providers and helpers that will help you accelerate your web development that's connected to the Microsoft Graph. We're now expanding into outside of web as well. You can build cross-platform apps such as Electron, and expanding our charter into the Windows platform a little bit. So if you have feedback around how you build your PWA or UWA type of apps and wanted to know more how we can help you or wanted to give us feedback, please feel free. Two big things that's coming. One is MSOL 2.0 provider, which is also the MSOL browser that will allow multi-user login. You can see sort of a mock-up on the left side. And then the other one is the OneDrive file implementation that will retrieve your files and folder structures from your SPO license enabled tenants. And then there's a little GIF on the right side that already stopped, but that's okay. But try out the install at Microsoft/mgt@next.file in order to test out the OneDrive piece if you want to, and give us feedback on all the new features.
Cool. Thank you, Beth, on that one. Really, really cool stuff. And Craft Toolkit is absolutely the easiest way to get started on integrating on Microsoft 365. So super, super, super easy and efficient way for SPFx solutions and non-SharePoint framework solution for SaaS solutions and all of that. So there's a lot of options there. So thank you for that. And documentation is in really good shape as well.
Thank you.
Now, few updates still. Bob German, you are in the call to quickly call out this awesome sample which came for the Teams samples.
Isn't this a great one? I was really happy about this. So many thanks to Nandeep, Ravi, and Smita for putting this together. As far as I know, this is the very first of its kind. This is the very first Teams meeting app written in SharePoint Framework. It's really very cool. It handles pre-meeting survey and actually works really nice. And so I would encourage you to check that out along with all of the samples up in aka.ms/Teams samples. And keep them coming.
Excellent. And then we'll jump to the group photo. I'm already actually in the together mode. So for those who want to be in the photo, please enable your video and we're going to do a quick group photo in here. I'm going to actually start the recording right away. So whenever, and I will let you know when we can do some waving. So we'll get a nice GIF animation again. I think these are, like I said, so many times, but it's so brilliant to see the actual faces behind of the names because we can't see each other in the conferences. And let's actually wave, everybody. So just good waving, smiling. Excellent. It's awesome to see all of the people in the community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's absolutely stay in touch. Hopefully at some day we'll get back on the on the face-to-face conferences and all of that. But hey, this together mode is good. And apparently there are plans for to improvements in together mode, even potentially introducing a custom one. So we'll see if that happens at some point. We'll need to prep that for these calls as well. Now, next we'll jump into the demo sections. So we'll start with Microsoft related on list group header formatting options.
Hey everyone, hope everybody's doing great. And I'll quickly start off with the demo. We introduced a few new formatting options in the JSON recently. For the group headers and the group footer formatters. So that's what we'll be talking about. I'll be quickly walking through a demo using JSON and see what is possible, what can be done. So what we'll be walking through is the group props, which we recently introduced with header formatter, footer formatter, and hide footer, and list footer formatting using footer formatter. So quickly, let me jump to the list. So this is the list we'll be using today. This is a simple employee list with a list of employees and with a column called approved and their date of joining and grouped on the column city. So what we'll be doing is first formatting the group header. So I'll quickly jump to Visual Studio, grab some JSON code here. I just copied the code. I'm going to format current view. Going to the advanced mode, and I'll just delete the existing code and add the new code, new JSON, and yes, there you have the new column formatting, new formatting on the group headers, which you can see the colors and the flags coming to the business logic, which I have put. So I'll quickly jump to the code again. So what you see here is the new group props, which we introduced, and the header formatter, where all the business logic and your styling goes, and everything here is the existing JSON, the way the current JSON formatting works. It's the same thing inside the header formatter. and we have new tokens using add group. You can pull data from the groups, and that's what you use to show the employee data and the other information here. Moving on, you can now also show aggregate information on the headers, on the group headers. So I'm grabbing another bunch of JSON here. All this code is already available in docs.microsoft. You can go ahead, start using it. I'm just demoing it. So I'll just remove the existing JSON on the same list, and I'll put the new aggregate data here and hit preview. And you can see that there's more other set of information being shown here. So what's happening is the business logic is finding out if there are any pending approved users, employees, and then showing the data here. So because Chicago has no pending approved employees, it's not showing anything here, but New York has one pending employee, and it is showing that information over here. So you can get aggregates from the group columns onto the group headers too. Moving on, the next demo is for the custom footer. So for this, there's a new prop again called footer formatter, and all this goes inside the group props for group footers, and the rest inside is similar to JSON styling. So I'll copy this code, go back to the list again, remove the existing JSON, pasting the new JSON and hitting preview. So let me expand the groups, and you can see that I'll also reduce this. Yeah. So you can see that conditionally there's certain colors and icons which are appearing. All this you can already do in for the list items. Now this is possible for the group footers too. And then moving on to the next set, which is the custom list footer. So we looked at the group footer, and even the list footer can now be formatted. Now again, back to the list. So this is the list footer, which is the which shows the totals and averages for the overall list. So removing the existing code, pasting it here, and now you can see that we have I have put a string called view details to show the details, and on hover you can see that certain data is being presented. Now if I go back to the code, you can see that on hover the data was showing through custom card props, and this is just an example to show that you can use custom card props within the footer formatter. And it's not necessary to use custom card props. It's just an example, just a demo. You can put whatever you want and it will work. And this card props is not mandatory. And another thing which I forgot to talk about so far is the height footer prop, which also we recently introduced. So this is a Boolean value, true or false, and using that you can show hide the footer. So if I go back to the earlier examples, the footer was hidden in one of the earlier examples for the aggregate. That's why you could not say it, but here it's false, so you're able to say it. So before I close, one last demo, which is the group header formatting is not just for the list view, but you can also do it for the gallery view. So if I quickly switch to the gallery view, you can see that the gallery tiles, the cards are grouped already using the city column. Now, if I go back, grab just the group props section, not the whole code, just the group props here, and I go back to the format current view and go to the advanced mode inside the card designer. And let me quickly scroll down to the formatter. Okay, I can collapse this. I'll add the JSON here. And there you go. So the same formatting you can apply to the group headers here too. And so gallery now has aggregate data, which can now be shown on group headers. And this is possible only if the data is already grouped. The list is already grouped on a certain column. So Yeah, that's it from my side. All this code is already available in the documentation, and we looked at gallery and tiles header formatter. And another important thing, we need to use separate JSON for list and tiles layout to show the formatting. And these are new tokens which we introduce, the group add group token and the aggregate token to get the respective information from the list, and add column aggregates to get the aggregate data. And that's it from my side. Please post if you have any questions, and we'll be answering them. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Excellent. Thank you, Naveed. Really, really cool stuff, and a lot of excitement on the chat as well related on these features. It is well, there's a lot of power related on list formatting, and it's great to see that it's evolving one step at a time to get even better and better. So really, really cool stuff. Thank you for that. Now, Bert, let's jump then on your side. Is this you? This is already Bert, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you see the Bert?
That's a fancy background picture. That's really, really cool. How do you recognize Bert's desktop? Is that your start menu is in a weird location? That's the easiest way to actually do that.
Yeah. It's the most normal location for a right-handed person. Let's not go there.
Sure.
Okay.
Take it away.
Take it away, yes. So I want to show you guys a demo of Pnp Core SDK. This is a getting started demo covering mainly how to read data and some data manipulation. There will be a future session doing a bit more deep dive on some topics. Now, Pnp Core SDK is the new library, the new .NET library that we built to replace the old PnP site score. And it's built using modern .NET. And it's our way forward. So you see us building more and more features in Pnp Core SDK, moving them away from PnP Framework into Pnp Core SDK. All new stuff will be over there. And this library takes a graph-first approach. So we mix graph and REST, and we try to prefer a graph when possible. Even do some CSOM under the cover. So it's a mixture of APIs, but for you as a user, it will be transparent. Now, with that being said, let's get started. Let's create a new .NET console application using command line. So we are creating a console. So we have something created here. It's called SIG. Let's open up that project in Visual Studio. You could use Visual Studio Code as well, but I'm an old school guy, so I prefer regular Visual Studio. So let's wait for that to load up. And once that's done, first thing is adding a reference to the Pnp Core NuGet packages. So let's do that. Manage NuGet packages. And I'll zoom in a second. So pnp.core gives you, oops, this. All right, so there's two packages, core.auth and core. For most projects, you need both, and core.auth depends on core. So if you install this one, you'll get Pnp Core as well. If you want to roll your own authentication provider and do everything yourself, you can just install Pnp Core. But I'm going to install Pnp Core.auth. Install latest version 1.1, the one that we shipped today. Okay, accept. And then there is one more package I need to install. Extensions hosting for the dependency injection infrastructure. I'm not going to install the 6.1, but the 5.0 install. And okay, so this kind of preps the project to get us started. I think that's all done. Next step is adding a minimal piece of code. And let's do that. I'm going to copy paste code because you don't want me typing code. So this program.cs. Now, the good thing with .NET and C# 9 is that you don't need a class anymore for basic simple programs. Just delete all of this. And I paste my code without class and structure, without methods, just a piece of code. And this is a bit like the minimal that you need to use Pnp Core SDK. So let's run over the code. Let me make it a bit bigger.
Can you? Yes, exactly. Thank you, Bert.
I read your mind, no problem. First, Pnp Core SDK uses dependency injection. So you need to have like a dependency injection container, which we're setting up over here. Then you need to configure it. So in our case, we add PnP Core service with add.pnp Core. And then the minimal option that you need to provide is an authentication provider. How do you want to authenticate? PnP Core SDK uses an Azure AD application. So, and there's different ways to authenticate with Azure AD applications. In this case, we chose the interactive one, which will prompt us to for authentication. And then we built the console, start the console, and then we get a context factory from the dependency injection container and start using that one. Now let me put a breakpoint over here and let's press F5. So it should start quite quickly, I hope. Let's see. Everything went well. Launching up, it should flip to my browser because I chose for interactive login. And you might have noticed that I'm not defining any application, whatever, because in this case, by default, if you do not specify your application, will fall back to the PnP management shell application. The one that you configure when you use PnP PowerShell, you can use the register-pnp management shell access commandlet to set that up. And that's a convenient approach, but you can also use your own application, of course. Let me authenticate with my demo account. Authentication done. And okay, here we are. So now we are connecting to this site. And we are going to grab the title. So load async of the title property. And we're going to display the title. I can show it over here. So really simple way to display some data. So this is like a really basic demo. The most minimal thing that you can have to get to use Pnp Core SDK. Now let's kind of do something a bit more complicated. I'm going to copy another piece of code and walk you through the different ways to get data. There are some interesting patterns that I want to explain. So I'm going to just delete all of this, paste this again. Good. Again, similar story, slightly different. I'm using credential manager authentication provider, where I just specify my own custom application. Oopsie, to the right, my own custom application, my domain, and my credential manager reference in my machine. So I don't have to provide any authentication manually. Good. Then I'm going to start and I'm going to walk you through what you see. Press F5. So we get up and running. Good, and let's clear this one. First, again, the same thing, get the title. So I'm getting a title of a SharePoint web object. Now, if I zoom in, this may be a little bit small, but let me zoom in over here and the debug output. Here you see us doing a graph call to get the title. See, title and graph is display name. So we translate that and we use the graph call and we show the title. If I, for example, ask a master URL property of the web, which is not available in graph, and I zoom in again over here. Where is it? Oh, yeah, sorry. Here you see a SharePoint REST call. So, but for you as a developer, it's the same thing. You didn't notice. When you develop it, you don't know. But under the covers, we use different ways to get to the data. All of this was async. You see the await and the async extension. For all public methods, there's also a sync equivalent. So if you prefer sync, you can do that. Just leave out the async part of the methods and you just call do something like this case context.web.load and you load header property. So moving on. This is an inconvenient one, a bit like we had in PnP Framework. There's ensure properties. So we have a term store support. So if you want to load the term store in groups, you can do it like this, ensure properties, and then load the groups. If the groups were loaded before, it will just return immediately. If not, it will do the server call and load the groups. And by the way, this is a beta call. So we're using graph beta here. So again, it's all kind of transparent under the covers. And you can, if you want, even say, I don't want to use beta, and then we'll just ignore these calls. Now, moving on, Teams. So we have support for Teams. And Teams, Teams API is a little bit different that you can't really expand to one API call to load the team, the members, the owners, the primary channel, the channels. So you have to do all separate calls to make that happen, which is inconvenient and not nice. Now, what did we do there? You see this load async statement, one line of code. And let's clear this so we don't have too much clutter. Okay, I'm going to press F10. Let it load the data. And there's quite a lot of data in my environment, so it might take a bit of time. I should press F10 one more time. Okay, I did it. Sorry. Yeah, I did it. Let me zoom in. Let's actually do a word wrap here. And zoom in a little bit. Where is it? Here. So here you see the first call. Selecting the team. Then you see here, let me zoom in on this side. We do a call to get the primary channel, and we do a call to get the channels, the users, and so on. So actually, we are wrapping 5 calls into one graph batch by doing this one line of code. So this will be one server round trip, but you get all this data automatically. So under covers, it will handle that for you. Let's move on. Let's load lists. Now we load all the lists. And once we have loaded lists, we can use them. So all these load statements, they load data in memory, they load data in our context, in this context object that you have here that we created to start with. And once you have data in the context, you can kind of read in the context. So here we are doing a link query on the data that we loaded with this call. So we're getting all the document libraries. So applying a filter. Okay, actually I skipped over this one. This one here, we do a query with a server-side filtering. So we get all the lists with a link query saying like, hey, give me all the document libraries, and then give them return them as a list. This is a server-side filter that happens via our custom link query provider. What else do we have? We have implicit paging. So imagine you have like 5,000 lists in your site and you want to iterate them. When you write code like this, await for each, and then context web.lists, you will see that will actually fire a query. If I scroll down and zoom in again, you see here the query lists and get the first 100. And you get the data, so you can already run on the first 100 and do some things. If you would go to the next batch of 100, you would get them automatically. So it would, the for each would just keep on looping. But when the first batch is returned, you can already start executing your own code on that first batch, and then it keeps on running automatically. Similar story here. Let's run to cursor. Let's go over here. We already loaded the groups before, so let's pick the group with the name debug. Then we do the query to retrieve the term sets in that group, and then for each term, the term set, we again do the query automatically now. So now we have terms loaded and we show the terms. So quite convenient way to get data. This is just some of the options. There are more complex options and more advanced things, but this kind of hopefully shows you how powerful it can be to get data, and how Graph or REST is fully transparent for you as a developer. To wrap up this demo, I want to do some data curation, because it's SharePoint. We create data, we create lists and libraries and put stuff in them. So let's actually clean out this piece over here like this, so we get back an empty block. Let's paste over here. Okay, I need to add a namespace. Good. Good. What we do right now is we are going to create a list, add some data to the list, and then query the data and update the data and delete the list. So creating data is with the add commands, add methods. So you will see those add methods appearing. So we create a list, we add some columns, Notice over here that we say add text batch and add boolean batch. We add a text column, a boolean column, but we're not adding them right away. We're adding them to a batch. And then with this line, we execute the batch. So let's put the breakpoint here. Let's press a 5. We can actually run through that. All right, loading up. Here we are. Let's clean this one. Oh, it's already. Let's press F10. So you see that we here created a batch containing different elements of the add that we were going to do. Right, let's add some list items. We add 4 items in batch again. And then we execute the batch, creating the 4 items. So you see here again, like the rest batch containing the 4 requests. Let's do a data load using the list data as stream approach. So we send the camel query and we get data back. And again, you can always look in the debug output to see what happened. Now, the thing that I wanted to actually end with is update. So let's clean this. We have those 4 items created. We read 2 items. So the ones starting with PnP1 as a value. So we have 2 items read again. Now we update those 2 items. So simple update of the title property. In this case, we're going to do a system update. Again, batch, so not immediately. We're just postponing the update. So we're updating both items in the for each. If you now say execute async and zoom into the details of the request, let's turn off the word wrapping and let's go over here. So for folks that are familiar with CSOM, you might recognize this kind of XML payload. So what happened here is that we, under the covers, built a CSOM payload that updated both items in one round trip. So we combined those things together and then did one server round trip to do the system update of those items because, well, there is no REST or Graph API to do so. So we try to get the most value from the existing APIs. And then we delete the list again. I think I'm on time, Vesa. I had some other parts, but I'm going to skip that for the next one. So I'm leaving some time for Paulo. I hope this kind of gave you a good idea on how PnP Core SDK works and how it kind of combines the different APIs under the covers to give you like a fluent and easy way to develop against SharePoint.
Super powerful. Thanks. That's super critical question from Sekhar. Will it be hit by throttling? How is throttling being handled?
Throttling thing is handled like any other API call that you do, meaning if you do too much work, too many requests, you might get throttled, but that's not really, the SDK is not really doing anything specific there. We actually even try to avoid making calls too much and go less to the server. So we think we are optimized for performance-wise, which should help you with throttling overall.
Yep. So that there's optimization inside of this SDK to avoid throttling to happen in general, which is a good thing. So there was a good comment and final note on this one, and then we'll jump on the next session. Joel Rodriguez pointed out that graph usage will go through the roof once we start using this library, which is really cool as well.
Yes,
so
yes.
It's
already thousands of people are using this library, by the way. So it's not because PnP PowerShell uses it as well. Absolutely, the framework uses it, so it's quite heavily used already.
Cool. But then we move into the next and the final section. So we have Kathy and Paulo to do the final demo section.
I will go straight to the technical part and try to save a few minutes at the end so that Katie can explain the business requirements of this solution that we are going to show you. So let's start from the big picture and from the solution architecture. The customer wanted to have a solution fully integrated with Microsoft Teams in order to being able to consume data coming from external systems and specifically from external data catalog systems. And they wanted to have it in Teams as a personal app experience, as well as with some other extensions like search capabilities and message composition capabilities. So we decided to provide an architecture based on Teams extensibility, and specifically, let me move to the actual architectural schema, and then we will go back to the previous slides. We decided to use, of course, Microsoft Teams Client as the hosting platform for the solution, and as the development platform, Teams version 3 to create the solution, mainly because we needed to have both client-side and server-side components to implement a bot to run the backend logic of the search extensions, for example. And then we created a .NET Core backend set of APIs secured with Azure Active Directory, and which can leverage the single sign-on capabilities of a Teams solution. And in the backend of those APIs, we rely on external data catalog systems, like, for example, Alation, which is the data catalog that Pfizer is using to build this proof of concept. From a security point of view, we use Azure Active Directory, and the security vault is the Azure Key Vault that is using this architecture to store the keys, to the authentication keys to consume the backend Alation APIs. So let me briefly show you the solution in action, and then I will explain you at an high level the development process, and then we will try to go back to Katie. So this is the UI of the personal app that we built as a proof of concept for this solution. This is based on a set of React components, which are leveraging the North Star React North Star components for Teams. And here we make multiple queries to a backend set of APIs, as I told you, which are provided by a third party, which is not Microsoft-based and which is not a Microsoft technology. So we needed to create a kind of a wrapper in order to make it possible for the end users to still have a single sign-on experience consuming a backend API, which is not natively supporting the Azure Active Directory authentication and the open authorization flow from an Azure AD point of view. Moreover, we wanted to have in the message composition experience the capability either to search in these insights for content, like, for example, let me make a really trivial search on this sample data, and we can search for content in the backend API, so on the Alation system, and hopefully I will see a reply back. And we are querying for some content in the backend data catalog, and the result will be an adaptive card that the user will be able to use to dig into the content they are searching for. Of course, okay, let me do one more query. Today's the demo effect is really helping. Okay, so for example, I can search for this item and I can see, opening the article, the actual content in the backend data catalog, just to give you an idea. Or I can compose a new message, and here I can search for something. And like as I did before, I can search, I can choose an item, and I can include an adaptive card in the message that I'm composing and that I'm sending to the channel. How did we implement this stuff from a technical point of view? In Teams 3, we created the personal tab, which is this one. We use Teams 3, so we are also using React hooks. And here, for example, when the authentication token is ready from a single sign-on point of view, we simply use that token to provide it to the backend API that we built in .NET Core. And there we use the on-behalf flow of MSHAL and of Azure Active Directory to retrieve an actual access token to consume the backend API, like, for example, Microsoft Lists, as well as the backend API of the external system we want to consume. And we have a set of React components to render the output, like, for example, this statistic component, which is the one we saw in the personal page. And in the statistic component, we simply rely on the REST API we built with .NET Core in order to retrieve or to search for the items we are looking for. And when we search, we use a client-side code making a REST query to the actual .NET Core API that we have in the backend. The same applies for the messaging extension. So when we make a search query in our bot, which will support the backend of the search capability, we simply rely on the alation system. We make a query. And again, here we can use MSAL. We use an application-only approach in the backend bot to connect to the REST API. And through this technique, we can also securely call the ASP.NET Core API from our bot extension. When we do that in the backend .NET Core API, we have, first of all, using dependency injection, some policies that we set up from an authentication point of view, so that we require to have either an access token, a delegated access token from the single sign-on Teams integration, or an application only token with an app role when it is the bot calling the backend API. Then under the cover, the backend API is exactly the same. And we use a backend client, which will consume the actual API in the alation side of the story, simply translating the open authorization token that we get from Azure Active Directory into an API token that we can use to consume the alation API. And this mapping is based on the Azure Key Vault, which will securely store the API key for every single user that we want to use to consume the backend API. Just to give you an idea, for example, here, when we consume, instead of the alation API, the Microsoft list items in a list in Microsoft 365, we can use the on-behalf flow, and we can easily, through the MSAL library, create a confidential client application builder. We can build that client application in order to be ready for an on-behalf flow, and we acquire a token to consume Microsoft Graph, generally speaking, and Microsoft Lists specifically on behalf of the current user who is connected to the Teams personal app. This is just to give you a big picture idea of the technologies that we used in this solution and what we did to make it possible for the users to consume a personal application with a single sign-on experience, even if in the backend there is a different technology, not based on Microsoft products, but still fully integrated from an end user point of view in the Microsoft Teams UI. I don't know if now Katie has a working microphone or not, so let's try.
Can you guys hear me now?
Perfect. So I will go back
perfect.
to the slide deck.
Okay.
Give me a sec. And okay, almost there. Okay, so up to you.
All right. Awesome. So very quickly, I do have to provide a disclaimer on my side. All views and opinions are my own for this portion and may not express necessarily the specific views and opinions of Pfizer as a whole. And then thank you so much, Paolo, for providing the technical components at a super high level. I'll be providing the business overview, and what Paolo has voiced is super powerful from our side for our different types of users. Very brief background, I'm a data scientist within Pfizer, and part of what our team really does is create different types of data and analytical products for the business to use and leverage. So on our side, we are already leveraging Alation as our primary data catalog, which basically stores all of our different database and data connections, documentation, and analysis. However, for us, really, the barrier to entry is when we try to share out these data and analytics with other folks throughout the enterprise. So for example, other business users, analysts, and even sometimes data scientists. So what we found is throughout the organization, folks are heavily leveraging Teams, SharePoint, and other types of Office, Microsoft 365 technologies. So what we thought was, hey, how about we bring Alation to them through connecting and integrating with Teams directly. So this for us really instigated the need for the direct integration between Teams, Alation, and some of our other technology components. With this, we're really excited based off of what Paolo has already shown, especially with the Teams app, the capability to search directly within Teams. This will provide different types of users, such as business users, analysts, and even other data data scientists an even easier way to find their data, to find their analysis, and not go through the bottlenecks of having to go through multiple different touch points just to figure out, hey, do we have, this data asset available, or hey, what's in our table? So for us, this is super powerful and a way to really scale and bring to enterprise the different types of products we're creating on our side. So really looking forward to further scalability on this side and seeing how we can leverage what was created in this component with just the Elation API and see how that can be translated with other potentially outside components and how we can directly connect that with our Office 365 environment.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, I see a comment about the multiple layers of authentication we had in the solution, and it's correct. We had to do some kind of dance to manage all the single sign-on flow, but I think the result is really cool from an end-user perspective, as Katie was saying. So this demo is mainly to show how powerful Teams can be when you want to create integrated solutions with external systems.
Yeah, and just to add there as well to what Paolo is saying, I think one of the things we're really looking forward to is potentially in that in the future for that single sign-on experience to make it even more simple. Yeah.
Vesa, I think we can go back to you. So thank you.
Absolutely. Really great stuff. Thank you, Kathy, also for joining from a business perspective. I think it's always super important on not only concentrate on technology, but also understanding why it was done and what is the business value out of this solution. So thank you for that. Really cool. Let me share my screen and we'll jump back on the slides. And just to close up for today, so thank you, Niket, Bert, Kathy, and Paolo for the great demos once again on today. We will have the recording available in 24 hours in the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel at AKMS M365 PnP videos. So that's available within 24 hours. Please follow up on us on Twitter. The next M365 General Dev call happens on April 15th. The next SharePoint Framework call happens on April 8th, so a week from now at the same time. And if you're looking into for other community calls which are happening, this is the full list of community calls. We talked about this one in the past. We're looking into consolidating some of these calls in the future. We'll do, however, a community survey before we do any decisions on that, so we'll get your input on the chosen direction. But thank you everybody for joining today, and have a great rest of the week. If you're from Europe, have a great Eastern, because Europe is heading to a holiday break right after today, actually, quite well in most of the countries in Europe. But have a great rest of the week, and let's stay in touch. Keep the feedback coming. Thank you. Bye-bye.